Hare Krishna, devotees. I've been requested to say some words about samadhis in the context, of course, of the passing of His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj, who is so extremely dear to all of us. We know the situation only too well, how Maharaj left this world last year. What a loss. But at the same time, Maharaj is present. He's present with us all in the form of his instructions, in the form of remembrance of him, in the form of his projects, which he cannot be separated from. So anyway, let us talk about samadhis in the broad sense. There are different types of samadhis. Those of you who have been to the garden of the 64 samadhis in Vrindavan town, just not far at all from the old Govindaji temple on that side of Vrindavan town, then you would have seen different types of samadhis. Of course, very famous, perhaps the most famous type, is a full body samadhi. Srila Prabhupada's body is interred in Vrindavan, just in front of the Krishna Balaram temple. And then a second type of samadhi is a pushpa samadhi, literally meaning some flowers that the great devotee was wearing, maybe in the form of a garland when they left this world. So we all know, of course, Prabhupada's pushpa samadhi is in Sridham Mayapur. But in that garden of the 64 samadhis in Vrindavan, there's a number. There's some full body samadhis, there's a number of pushpa samadhis, but there are other types of samadhis. Right at the entranceway, if one is familiar with it, is a Nam Samadhi, of Lord Chaitanya. And right next to it is a Nam Samadhi of Lord Nityananda, just their names on a type of a plaque or some type of memorial structure. So a Nam Samadhi is another form of samadhi, and one gets those because transcendental personalities and their names are not different from each other. Then there's a Smriti Samadhi, a samadhi of remembrance. Often connected with Nam Samadhi, even in Katwa, in West Bengal, at the place where Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, there's a samadhi of one of Lord Chaitanya's hairs from his sannyas ceremony. In Vrindavan, not so far from the Vamsi Gopal temple where Srila Prabhupada stayed for some time, there is the Gadadhar Dant Samadhi. One of Gadadhar, from the Panchatattva, one of his teeth, Dant, is in Samadhi there. These are different types of Samadhis. And here and there you see these different types of Samadhis, as I said, in that garden not far from the Govindaji temple. You get all these different types of Samadhis. It's really quite an amazing place. So we understand that these great transcendental personalities, they're present in their samadhis of whatever type, particularly their full body samadhis, but whatever type of samadhi, because such a great transcendental person, their body is considered to be spiritual. Therefore, because the body of a transcendental personality is spiritual, therefore it's not burnt, it's not cremated when the devotee leaves the body. So transcendental, spiritualized means there's still a type of presence of that transcendental personality there. It's really something very amazing. Just ordinary people, according to Vedic tradition and many traditions around the world, their bodies are cremated. Particularly, we understand that for a materialistic person who's very attached to their material body and identifying with the material body like this, then it actually helps them to move on after the soul leaves the material body. It helps them to move on to their next situation if their body is cremated, if the body is burnt, because then that helps them to break that attachment to the gross material body. But in the case, of course, of great transcendental personalities, they're not attached to their bodies one way or the other. They're not attached. And the body being sacred, having been engaged so much in the transcendental, loving, devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the body is very sacred on one hand. There's a connection transcendentally with the person, transcendental person, and there's no question of the person being attached in any way whatsoever. Therefore, generally, the bodies of great transcendental devotees are buried and not burnt. And then the presence of the person at that burial place, at the samadhi, is accepted and is felt by the devotees, particularly the disciples, but any sincere devotee. When we visit Srila Prabhupada's samadhis, Vrindavan, Mayapur, we feel the presence of Srila Prabhupada. Rupa Goswami's samadhi in the Radha Damodar temple, Vrindavan, we feel his presence. Even Srila Prabhupada himself told of the experience when he was staying at the Radha Damodar temple before he went to the Western world, Srila Prabhupada said that he had the experience that at the samadhi of Srila Rupa Goswami, that Rupa Goswami appeared to him and instructed him and inspired him to carry out his preaching mission. Prabhupada had that personal experience of the personal presence of that great, great Acharya at his samadhi place. So it's really, these samadhis, there's very deep transcendental reality, very deep transcendental nature connected with them. It's not just a burial place which reminds a person of whoever it was who passed away, perhaps a family member like that. It's not just that, but as a transcendental reality, it's a place where the actual presence of the devotee is there and can be experienced by sincere devotees. So yes, so generally the great transcendentalists, great devotees, their bodies are buried, and not just buried, but preserved. For example, the first, to our knowledge, first samadhi, which is very much still existing, is the samadhi of Ramanujacharya at Sri Rangam. Those of you who have been to Sri Rangam, surely you will have been there and seen the transcendental body of Ramanujacharya there. And we are told that it's actually his body which has been preserved somehow or other. So, yes, so it's taken that he is personally present there. So generally the devotee, the great devotees, their bodies are placed in samadhi and not burnt. Sometimes the bodies are burnt, like for example at Radhakund. At Radhakund, we find that there are 2 samadhis of Raghunath Das Goswami. There's a samadhi of Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, and there's a samadhi of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. In the case of Srila Raghunath Das, you might question, what is this 2 samadhis? 2 samadhis? How could it be? But what happened was that when he left this world, his body was buried, placed in samadhi, full body samadhi. But then after some time, and the same with Raghunath Bhatta, same with Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, their bodies were buried. But then after some time, as the Muslims became more aggressive about their persecution of Vaishnavism and just of the traditional Indian spiritual culture, that sometimes these people would dig up the bodies of the great devotees and break them up and just desecrate them. It's just horrible, shocking thing. because, as I understand, they have the idea that if someone's body is buried whole, then the person may go to heaven, whatever that means. But if the body is cremated or broken up, then the person will not go to heaven. So in order to avoid having these great devotees go to heaven, whatever their idea was, they broke up the bodies. So therefore, the devotees, they exhumed the bodies of these great transcendentalists. And in the case of Raghunath Das Goswami, half of the ashes of his transcendental body are in that Radha Gopinath temple. It's, what would you say, at the northern end of Radhakund. And the other half of his ashes are at the place there in between. It's the Govinda Ghat area in between Radhakund and Shyamakund, where those three samadhis are. So half the ashes in one place, half in the other place. In the case of Raghunath Bhatta, a similar situation, same type of situation. Half of his ashes there at that the three samadhis place there in between Radhakund and Shyamakund, and the other half of his ashes, to my knowledge, there in the garden, the Samadhi garden, the garden of the 64 Samadhis, not far from the Govindaji temple. We mentioned that earlier. So, yes. So this is really something very wonderful, that in our Vaishnav culture, that even though great devotees may have left this world hundreds of years ago, but still we can be in their presence, we can feel their presence at their samadhis. Therefore, it's really nice, for example, at Srila Prabhupada's samadhi in Vrindavan, and also the Pushpa samadhi in Mayapur. It's so nice to go there and chant japa by the samadhi. It's just so wonderful, because if one becomes transcendentally absorbed there in chanting the holy names, then one's remembrance of of Prabhupada in that case will deepen, and one will feel his presence. One will actually be in his presence in this very special transcendental way, which is a little different from Prabhupada's presence in his instructions, in his books. Is just another transcendental element in the whole picture of what is Krishna consciousness. And in this case, it's another element in the picture of what is our relationship with Srila Prabhupada. So today, of course, we're remembering His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj, who was so dear to all of us, so well known to all of us, very, very well known to myself, and extremely dear to me. We had such a wonderful, such a warm, loving relationship. So on this occasion, we remember Maharaj. On this occasion, despite feeling a great loss from his physical passing. But on this occasion, we're very happy that his samadhi is there in Mayapur. And I'm waiting for that time when I'll be able to come and offer my dandavats to Maharaj at his samadhi there, and offer my prayers, chant some japa, and in this way, in this very special way, like I said, a little different from Prabhupada's experience, from the experience with Srila Prabhupada of his instructions, etc. So with Bhakti Charu Maharaj, in a way which is a little different from associating with him through his instructions or in his picture, but it's just a different type of transcendental taste, different type of transcendental experience, to feel oneself in the presence of Bhakti Charu Maharaj at his samadhi. So thank you all very much for giving me the opportunity to say a few words. And know that when you visit his samadhi, if you offer some incense, some flowers, a ghee lamp, maybe some Ganges water, something like that, know that at his samadhi, Bhakti Charu Maharaj is accepting those things. Hare Krishna. Srila Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande.